Imagine a civilization that stretched across continents, not ruled by kings, not built on walls or armies, yet it left a mark on millions of lives and shaped the modern world, without ever being called an empire. This is the story of a global civilization, hidden in plain sight, whose secrets have been overlooked for centuries. Are you ready to uncover the civilization that history almost forgot? Chapter 1. The civilization without a name. Most people imagine civilizations as massive empires, ruled by kings and emperors, with armies marching across vast territories and grand palaces rising above the landscape. But history is not always as simple as it seems, and there existed a civilization unlike any we have studied in school. One that stretched across continents and influenced millions of lives without ever claiming an empire, a throne, or a crown. This was a civilization that thrived not through conquest or force, but through connection, cooperation, and the exchange of knowledge, ideas, and culture. It did not leave behind towering monuments, monumental inscriptions, or statues of rulers. Yet its footprint can be traced across continents in ways that are subtle, almost invisible, but profound. From the bustling river valleys of Mesopotamia to the deserts of Africa, from the dense forests of Europe to the islands of Southeast Asia, communities were linked through networks of trade, communication, and shared innovation. People traveled great distances, carrying more than just goods. They carried ideas, traditions, technologies, and philosophies, weaving a web of culture that connected the world long before the concept of globalization existed. And yet, because this civilization did not have central rulers, kings, or an army to record its victories, it has largely been forgotten by history. Hidden in the gaps between the famous empires of Rome, China, and Egypt, its influence is still all around us if we know where to look. The designs on pottery, the rituals observed in distant cultures, even the way we construct our societies, all bear traces of this invisible civilization. Archaeological evidence suggests that they were extraordinary innovators. They created tools, agricultural methods, and early forms of writing that spread across regions through merchants, travelers, and scholars. One of the most fascinating aspects is that no single group or individual claimed ownership of this civilization. It was a collective human effort, driven by shared knowledge, curiosity, and a desire to connect with others. Imagine a world where ideas traveled faster than armies, where knowledge was valued more than gold, and where collaboration was stronger than domination. This was the reality of the global civilization without a name. Trade routes became the lifelines of this civilization, not for conquest, but for exchange. Caravans carried not only spices, textiles, and metals, but also stories, myths, religious beliefs, and scientific knowledge. A symbol or technique discovered in one region could appear thousands of miles away, in places where no one would have expected, showing an interconnectedness far ahead of its time. Linguistic studies reveal similarities in languages separated by oceans, suggesting a cultural exchange that defies the traditional understanding of isolated civilizations. Even in architecture, patterns emerge that are remarkably consistent across distant regions. Temples, marketplaces, and homes show shared techniques and designs, indicating the spread of ideas and knowledge rather than political domination. Despite its lack of rulers, armies, and political control, this civilization shaped the course of history in subtle but powerful ways, influencing the rise of societies, religions, and scientific thought for centuries to come. DNA studies of human populations further suggest migration patterns that correspond with the movement of this civilization. Ideas and people, hinting at a level of connectivity that modern historians are only beginning to understand. And yet, it is still largely invisible to the average person. Its story is hidden in plain sight, waiting for those willing to look beyond traditional history and question what we think we know about the past. The more we investigate, the more we see that power does not always come from force or conquest. It can also come from influence, cooperation, and the spread of knowledge. And this civilization was perhaps the most powerful of all in that regard. But uncovering the full extent of this civilization is challenging because its traces are fragmented and scattered. Artifacts lie in museums or buried beneath the earth. Manuscripts sit in archives written in languages that have long been forgotten. And yet, these fragments tell a story that is as thrilling as any epic tale of kings and battles. They reveal a civilization that was alive with ideas, movement, and innovation, constantly growing and shaping the world around it without ever seeking glory or domination. So, when we look at history, we often celebrate the empires that fought wars and conquered lands. But this civilization reminds us that influence and progress can exist without a throne, without a crown, and without recognition. The civilization without a name challenges everything we think we know about history, forcing us to consider that some of the greatest human achievements may never have been recorded by traditional means, and yet their legacy is all around us. In the next chapter, we will dive deep into the incredible networks of trade and knowledge that allowed this civilization to spread across continents, connecting people, ideas, and cultures in ways that still influence our world today. Chapter 2. Networks of Trade and Knowledge. This civilization spread not by armies or conquest, but through an intricate web of trade, knowledge, and human connections that spanned continents. Every city, village, and port became a node in this global network, where ideas, technologies, and goods flowed across regions, connecting people who would otherwise have remained isolated. Merchants and travelers were more than just carriers of goods. They were carriers of culture, philosophy, religion, and science. Every journey brought new knowledge to distant lands, transforming societies along the way. Even objects themselves tell incredible stories. Pottery patterns, tools, jewelry, and religious artifacts appear in locations separated by thousands of miles, demonstrating that people were exchanging ideas long before modern communication existed. Ships crossing the seas, caravans traversing deserts, and merchants walking mountain passes were the lifeblood of this civilization. They carried not only spices, metals, and textiles, but also stories, rituals, and scientific knowledge. Consider agriculture, one of humanity's most vital innovations. A technique developed in one fertile river valley could spread across hundreds of miles, transforming the ways entire societies grew food and sustained populations. And it wasn't limited to technology. Religious ideas, philosophies, and artistic styles traveled these networks as well. A ritual practiced in one culture could appear in another continent centuries later, subtly adapted yet fundamentally the same. Early writing systems were also part of these networks. Symbols, letters, and scripts were shared across communities, allowing knowledge to spread faster than any army or conquest ever could. Mathematics and astronomy were particularly fascinating. Concepts developed in one region, like measuring the stars or calculating seasons, were eventually used thousands of miles away by people who had never met the original thinkers. Markets became not only centers of commerce, but also hubs of education. Traders exchanged ideas as eagerly as they exchanged goods. A merchant bringing silk from the East might also introduce a new farming technique, a religious idea, or a scientific principle. Temples, academies, and libraries flourished because of this exchange. They were not built for rulers or kings, but for the collective human pursuit of knowledge and progress. The network relied on trust and mutual benefit, which made it fragile yet powerful. Communities survived because cooperation ensured everyone prospered. Ideas became a form of currency, sometimes more valuable than gold or silver. Over time, this network transformed entire societies. It influenced political structures, social systems, and even legal codes. The civilizations connected by these routes became more resilient, more innovative, and more interconnected than isolated societies. Trade routes were not simple lines on a map. They were lifelines, carrying information and goods across mountains, deserts, and oceans. Every journey was also a story of human ingenuity, courage, and curiosity. Consider the evidence of far-flung artifacts. Pottery with identical designs appears in regions separated by thousands of miles. Tools and weapons show techniques replicated across cultures with no direct contact. Even musical instruments show striking similarities across continents. Linguistics also reveals this connectivity. Words, grammar, patterns, and even phonetics traveled with merchants and scholars. A concept invented in one region could appear in a distant land. Centuries later, showing a shared intellectual tradition, even religious practices were influenced by this network. Stories, myths, and rituals traveled from one culture to another, sometimes blending with local customs, creating shared beliefs that spanned vast distances. It is astonishing to consider the efficiency of this network. Knowledge could travel hundreds, even thousands of miles, without a central government, armies, or official oversight. And yet, despite this complexity, it thrived. Trust, respect, and the value of knowledge held the system together. It shows us that influence does not require domination. Ideas can be far more powerful than armies. Even scientific discoveries were spread through these routes. Metallurgy, astronomy, medicine, and engineering traveled from one region to another. What one society discovered could accelerate progress in another. This civilization, in many ways, was the engine of human innovation. Interestingly, this network also connected ordinary people. Farmers, artisans, sailors, and merchants were active participants. They were the ones who shared techniques, recipes, songs, and stories. It was not only the elite who shaped history, it was everyone contributing to a collective human effort. Archaeological evidence continues to reveal the scale of these networks. Ancient ports, caravanserais, and marketplaces show astonishing connectivity. Even items once thought local are now found across regions, indicating a vast, intricate exchange system that has only recently been understood. DNA evidence also supports this. Populations separated by thousands of miles show traces of migration and interconnection. This suggests that not only goods and ideas, but also people moved along these routes, leaving a genetic imprint that survives to this day. The remarkable thing is that this network endured for centuries, despite wars, natural disasters, and political upheavals. The flow of ideas, goods, and knowledge continued, evolving, adapting, and growing stronger. Even today, traces remain. Modern roads, shipping lanes, and cultural similarities echo this ancient network. It shaped the world in ways that are often invisible but undeniable. This civilization teaches us an important lesson. That power does not always come from armies or rulers. True influence can arise from connection, knowledge, and shared human ambition. And it can shape the course of history in ways that dominate the legacy of kings and empires. In the next chapter, we will meet the people behind this incredible civilization. The diverse communities, mysterious cultures, and brilliant minds who built this network. And we'll explore the surprising ways their lives and ideas still touch our world today. Chapter 3. The people behind the civilization. Every great civilization is defined by its people, and this global civilization was no exception. Even though it lacked kings, armies, and palaces, it was built by countless communities spread across continents, each contributing their own skills, knowledge, and traditions to a shared human endeavor. These people were diverse in language, culture, and religion. Yet they shared a common understanding. Cooperation, connection, and the pursuit of knowledge were more valuable than conquest. Merchants carried goods and ideas across great distances, but they were also storytellers, teachers, and cultural ambassadors. Through them, innovations, beliefs, and artistic styles traveled thousands of miles. Artisans and craftsmen contributed in ways that went beyond simple creation. Pottery, metalwork, textiles, and tools reflected both local traditions and influences from faraway lands. Their work reveals that creativity was shared, adapted, and improved across regions. Farmers were central to the civilization's growth. They developed agricultural methods that could feed not only their local communities, but also cities far away. Their innovations in irrigation, crop rotation, and animal domestication spread across continents, transforming societies and sustaining populations in ways historians are only beginning to fully appreciate. Scholars and teachers were another key group. They collected, recorded, and shared knowledge: mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy. Through networks of learning, they ensured that discoveries made in one region could benefit communities thousands of miles away. Even ordinary travelers played a role. A fisherman, a caravan guard, or a sailor might unknowingly carry ideas or techniques from one culture to another. Every journey, every interaction, helped strengthen the civilization's invisible network. Some groups remained mysterious to us. They left behind few records, yet their influence is visible in artifacts, cultural practices, and even the spread of certain languages. Archaeologists have found evidence of communities that traded extensively, shared artistic styles, and exchanged knowledge, despite leaving almost no written record. Religion and spirituality also connected these people. Shared rituals, myths, and moral philosophies spread across vast distances. They created a sense of shared human experience, even among communities that had never directly interacted. The civilization was remarkably egalitarian in some ways. Power did not rest in the hands of a few rulers. Instead, it emerged organically from cooperation, respect, and shared human goals. Ideas were more important than crowns. Knowledge was more powerful than armies. Language played a critical role in uniting these communities. Linguistic similarities showed that words, grammar, patterns, and writing systems traveled across regions, allowing communication, storytelling, and the preservation of knowledge across great distances. Art and music were equally important. Songs, instruments, and artistic motifs traveled along trade routes, bridging cultures and creating shared cultural identities across continents. Even science was a shared pursuit. Mathematical concepts, astronomical observations, and medical practices were exchanged between communities, allowing innovation to leap from one region to another decades or even centuries before modern historians would expect. What is most remarkable is that none of these people sought to dominate others. Their goal was not conquest, wealth, or power. It was survival, learning, and progress for themselves and their communities. Their collaboration allowed societies to flourish even in the absence of political control. Cities grew, trade prospered, and knowledge spread without the coercion of rulers or armies. This global civilization was proof that humanity's greatest achievements can arise from connection, cooperation, and shared vision. And yet, despite their brilliance, many of these people remain anonymous to us. We do not know their names, their stories, or their personal struggles. All we can see are the traces of their lives. In the artifacts they left behind, the systems they created, and the ideas they shared. Even today, their influence persists in subtle ways. Languages, religious practices, artistic motifs, and agricultural techniques all bear their mark. They remind us that civilization is built not just by rulers, but by countless ordinary people working together toward a common purpose. So, who were these people? They were innovators, traders, farmers, scholars, artisans, storytellers, and explorers. They were the threads that wove a global network of knowledge, culture, and cooperation. Without them, this civilization could never have existed. In the next chapter, we will explore the astonishing innovations and technologies this civilization developed, from agriculture to navigation to science, and uncover how these inventions traveled across continents, shaping human history in ways that are still felt today. Chapter 4. Innovations that changed the world. One of the most remarkable aspects of this global civilization was its ability to innovate in ways that profoundly shaped human history. They did not rely on conquest to make their mark. Instead, their inventions, discoveries, and ideas traveled across continents, transforming societies without ever needing armies or kings. Consider agriculture, the foundation of civilization. Farmers developed sophisticated irrigation systems, crop rotation techniques, and methods for domesticating animals that allowed communities to thrive in diverse climates. These agricultural innovations were not isolated. They spread along trade routes, from fertile river valleys to distant plains and deserts, allowing entire regions to support growing populations and more complex societies. But agriculture was just the beginning. They also developed remarkable tools and technologies. Metalworking advanced in ways that allowed stronger, more durable tools, weapons that were more effective, and implements that made daily life easier for ordinary people. Pottery, one of humanity's earliest arts, flourished as well. Potters created designs that were not only functional, but beautiful. And these designs traveled, inspiring distant cultures and leaving a lasting artistic legacy. Even early forms of writing and record-keeping spread through this civilization. Symbols, scripts, and proto-letters were exchanged across regions, allowing knowledge to accumulate and innovations to build upon one another. Medicine was another field transformed by their ingenuity. Herbal remedies, surgical techniques, and early understanding of disease were shared across communities, saving countless lives and advancing human understanding far beyond what we typically imagine for ancient times. Navigation and transportation innovations were equally impressive. They developed ships, carts, and road systems that allowed trade and knowledge to flow efficiently. Explorers could cross seas and deserts, bringing with them not just goods, but ideas, philosophies, and skills. Even mathematics and astronomy were deeply advanced. They tracked celestial movements, developed calendars, and created measurement systems, which helped agriculture, navigation, and engineering flourish across regions. One of the most fascinating aspects of these innovations is how quickly they spread. A technique invented in one valley or city could appear thousands of miles away, adapted and improved by people who had never met the original inventors. The civilization's approach to innovation was collaborative rather than competitive. Ideas were shared, refined, and built upon, not hoarded or guarded jealously. This culture of openness was a driving force behind its global influence. Some inventions appear surprisingly modern. Engineering feats such as aqueducts, canals, and early mechanical devices show a deep understanding of physics and practicality. In some cases, these technologies predate similar inventions in well-known empires by centuries. Even everyday objects reveal their genius. Cooking utensils, clothing techniques, and household tools were designed for efficiency and durability. And their designs traveled far beyond their places of origin. Art and science were also intertwined. Geometric patterns, astronomy, and architecture reflected an understanding of mathematics that allowed structures to endure for centuries. Temples, homes, and public spaces were built not only for function, but for harmony, beauty, and durability. What is even more astonishing is that these innovations were not just local achievements, they spread through the civilization's global networks, influencing distant regions and shaping societies thousands of miles apart. Even the concept of standardized systems can be traced back to this civilization. Weights, measures, and accounting techniques allowed trade to flourish and ensured that knowledge and resources could be shared accurately across great distances. The cumulative effect of these innovations was staggering. They improved quality of life, advanced knowledge, and laid the foundations for future civilizations to build upon. It is also important to note that innovation was not limited to elite scholars or rulers. Ordinary people contributed as much as merchants, farmers, and artisans. Their curiosity, creativity, and problem-solving skills were essential to the civilization's success. Even cultural innovations traveled along these networks. Music, storytelling, and ritual practices evolved and spread, strengthening the sense of shared human experience across continents. This civilization's greatest achievement was not any single invention, but the way its innovations interconnected people, knowledge, and societies, creating a world that was more advanced, more interconnected, and more resilient than most people imagine. In the next chapter, we will uncover the cultural footprints this civilization left across continents, from architecture and art to rituals and traditions, and reveal the astonishing similarities between societies separated by thousands of miles. Chapter 5. Cultural footprints across continents. One of the most fascinating aspects of this global civilization is the cultural footprint it left across continents, visible even thousands of years later. Unlike traditional empires, its influence was subtle, woven into daily life, and spread through ideas, rituals, art, and architecture. From the patterns on pottery to the layout of ancient cities, we can see striking similarities across regions separated by thousands of miles. Artisans shared designs, techniques, and motifs, which adapted to local tastes but retained core elements from distant cultures. Music, storytelling, and oral traditions also spread widely. Songs and myths traveled along trade routes, blending with local customs to create shared cultural narratives. Architecture provides some of the clearest evidence. Temples, homes, and public buildings from distant regions show similar principles of design, symmetry, and functionality. These structures were not copied blindly. They evolved with each culture, yet the underlying influence remained consistent. Even religious practices reflect this shared heritage. Certain rituals, symbolic gestures, and moral philosophies appear in widely separated communities. They suggest a common cultural framework, adapted locally but rooted in the same principles. Textiles, clothing, and decorative arts reveal similar patterns. Dyes, weaving techniques, and embroidery styles appear across continents, showing that artisans learn from one another, even across vast distances. The culinary traditions of different regions also carry hints of shared knowledge. Spices, cooking methods, and preservation techniques spread along trade networks, shaping diets and food cultures thousands of miles apart. Language, too, preserves traces of this civilization. Shared words, grammar, structures, and scripts indicate that communication and cultural exchange were far more widespread than previously imagined. Even festivals and celebrations show echoes of this global influence. Communities thousands of miles apart observed rituals with striking similarities, from agricultural ceremonies to seasonal festivals, revealing a shared human understanding of life, nature, and community. One of the most striking examples is symbolic art. Certain motifs, like geometric patterns or animal depictions, appear on pottery, textiles, and carvings across continents. These symbols may have carried meaning, stories, or cultural values, transcending borders. The transmission of knowledge also influenced cultural norms. Governance, social cooperation, and ethical principles were shared, helping societies establish order and community cohesion without central rulers. Even scientific knowledge became part of culture. Astronomy, medicine, and mathematics were not isolated to scholars. They influenced calendars, rituals, and public planning. This meant that cultural and practical life were intertwined with intellectual advancements. The civilization's cultural footprint is subtle because it was never imposed. It was not enforced by conquest or coercion. It spread because it was useful, beautiful, and adaptable. Communities adopted, adapted, and integrated these ideas willingly. And this cultural diffusion was surprisingly resilient. Even as empires rose and fell, migrations occurred, and local politics changed. The cultural traces of this civilization remained in art, language, rituals, and social practices. Modern archaeology continues to uncover surprising links. Artifacts from distant regions show shared motifs and techniques. Ancient scripts reveal words or ideas that traveled across oceans and deserts. And DNA studies confirm the movement of people who carried culture with them. Even today, elements of this civilization's culture survive. Music, storytelling, artistic traditions, and architecture, all bear echoes of an invisible network that connected humans long before the modern era. This global cultural diffusion challenges traditional ideas of history. It shows that influence can travel without armies, that ideas, art, and knowledge can shape societies more profoundly than conquest ever could. And perhaps the most remarkable aspect is how ordinary people carried and preserved this culture. Farmers, artisans, travelers, and scholars all played a part, ensuring that ideas spread, adapted, and endured across continents and generations. The civilization's cultural footprint is a reminder that true legacy is not measured by monuments or empires, but by the ideas, values, and creativity passed from one generation to the next, across space and time. In the next chapter, we will explore the philosophy of connection behind this civilization, the shared values, principles, and ethical systems that allowed people to collaborate across vast distances, and why their approach to society was far ahead of its time. Chapter 6. The Philosophy of Connection. What allowed this global civilization to thrive was not force, conquest, or centralized power, but a philosophy rooted in connection, cooperation, and shared human values. From the earliest communities, people understood that survival depended on collaboration, not domination. The more they shared knowledge, resources, and skills, the stronger their societies became. This philosophy guided how people interacted with one another. Merchants, artisans, farmers, and scholars all followed unwritten rules that valued trust, respect, and reciprocity. Trust was the foundation. A trader would not survive if they cheated their partners, and communities that upheld honesty and fairness prospered. This created a network of interdependent societies, bound together not by force, but by mutual respect and reliability. Cooperation was another core principle. Knowledge, technology, and culture were shared freely, because communities recognized that collective progress was more valuable than individual gain. An innovation in one region could save lives in another, or improve agriculture, navigation, or medicine thousands of miles away. Ethical principles were woven into daily life. People valued fairness, responsibility, and helping others, not because of rulers or laws, but because these behaviors ensured survival and prosperity. Education was considered a communal duty. Scholars taught travelers, students, and apprentices, so knowledge could spread further and faster. Every community became both a student and a teacher, strengthening the web of connection across regions. Even conflict was approached differently. Instead of conquest, societies often resolved disputes through negotiation, trade agreements, and mutual understanding, maintaining the stability of the network while avoiding unnecessary bloodshed. This philosophy also encouraged curiosity and exploration. People sought new ideas, techniques, and cultures, because learning from others enriched everyone. They were not threatened by different customs. They embraced them as opportunities for growth. Religion and spirituality often reinforced this philosophy. Shared rituals, moral stories, and ethical frameworks emphasized compassion, cooperation, and interconnectedness. Even communities separated by oceans or mountains could feel a sense of shared humanity. Art, music, and storytelling reflected the same values. They celebrated collaboration, innovation, and the achievements of the community rather than the glory of a single ruler. Through culture, the philosophy of connection was transmitted across generations. Trade routes were not just economic arteries, they were philosophical highways. Every exchange of goods carried lessons, ideas, and shared ethical values. People learned how to respect distant communities, honor agreements, and share knowledge responsibly. The philosophy of connection extended to governance. Cities and villages were largely self-organized, but guided by collective norms and shared expectations. Leaders existed, but their power was often symbolic or advisory, because true strength came from the cooperation of the people themselves. This approach created a civilization that was resilient, adaptive, and innovative. Societies could endure environmental challenges, migrations, or conflicts. Because the network of trust and knowledge ensured that solutions could travel across regions quickly. Even mathematics, astronomy, and science reflected this philosophy. Knowledge was not hoarded, it was shared freely. One discovery could benefit multiple communities simultaneously, multiplying its impact and accelerating progress globally. Cultural diffusion was also guided by this philosophy. Rituals, arts, and social practices spread because communities saw value in adopting and adapting beneficial ideas. This created a world where cultures were connected yet diverse, unified by principles rather than force. One of the most remarkable lessons of this civilization is that connection itself became a form of power. Influence was measured not by armies, but by the reach of ideas, the strength of networks, and the ability to inspire cooperation. Even today, this philosophy resonates. Modern globalization, international collaboration, and cultural exchange reflect the same principles, though in a more fragmented and complex world. The civilization's philosophy of connection was revolutionary. It demonstrated that societies could thrive not through domination, but through collaboration, trust, and the shared pursuit of knowledge. And yet, for centuries, this philosophy remained hidden in history. Because historians often focus on empires, kings, and wars, overlooking the invisible networks of trust and cooperation that actually shaped human progress. This philosophy was more than a set of beliefs. It was a practical strategy. It ensured survival, prosperity, and innovation across vast distances. And it allowed a civilization without armies or rulers to leave a lasting mark on the world. In the next chapter, we will explore why this civilization was almost forgotten, the hidden forces, historical biases, and challenges that caused such an influential network to fade from mainstream history, and the clues that modern scholars are uncovering to piece it back together. Chapter 7. Why they were almost forgotten despite its enormous influence across continents. This civilization remains largely unknown to most people today. Historians and scholars often focus on empires, kings, and wars, because these are easier to record, study, and glorify. Monuments, inscriptions, and battle accounts leave clear traces of power, while a civilization built on knowledge, trade, and cooperation leaves more subtle marks. Without grand palaces or armies, without towering statues or official chronicles, this civilization became almost invisible to history. Many of its records were lost over time. Fragile manuscripts decayed or were destroyed by fires, floods, and natural disasters. Artifacts were buried, forgotten, or repurposed by later civilizations. Pottery, tools, and artworks that might have told stories of innovation and connection lay hidden beneath layers of earth for centuries. Political biases also played a role. Writers and historians often celebrated rulers and empires, overlooking societies that thrived through cooperation rather than conquest. Because power was measured in armies, not ideas, this civilization was undervalued, dismissed, or ignored. Geography contributed to the forgetting. Its networks stretched across deserts, rivers, mountains, and seas, leaving traces scattered across continents. No single city or region could claim it as its own, which made it harder for historians to study or categorize. The spread of dominant cultures and empires also obscured its legacy. When Rome, China, and other powerful empires expanded, they absorbed, adapted, or replaced local cultures. The contributions of this civilization were often attributed to later societies or simply lost in the shadows of more visible powers. Even language created barriers. Many of their scripts and symbols were never fully deciphered, and some were lost entirely, leaving gaps in our understanding. Despite these challenges, traces remained. Artifacts, architecture, and written fragments hinted at a widespread, connected civilization. Scholars pieced together clues from trade goods, shared artistic motifs, and technological similarities. Modern archaeology has begun to uncover the truth. DNA studies show patterns of migration and interconnection, confirming that people traveled, traded, and exchanged ideas across continents. Linguistic research also provides evidence. Shared words, grammatical structures, and writing styles reveal long-distance cultural exchange. Even religious and philosophical ideas offer clues. Rituals, myths, and ethical systems spread far beyond their points of origin, suggesting a network of knowledge that defies traditional historical narratives. But despite growing evidence, this civilization remains underappreciated. Its influence is often invisible because it did not rely on military conquest or political domination. Its power was in ideas, culture, and knowledge, things that are harder to quantify and document. Natural disasters played a part too. Earthquakes, floods, and volcanic eruptions destroyed cities, trade centers, and archives. Without centralized records, these losses erased vast amounts of history. Colonialism and modern history writing further contributed. European scholars often ignored or undervalued non-imperial societies, focusing instead on nations, empires, and rulers that fit their frameworks. Yet, the civilization's impact persists in art, music, science, agriculture, and social practices. Even if the stories of its people were forgotten, their innovations and ideas continue to shape human progress. This hidden history teaches us a crucial lesson. That influence is not always measured by fame or monuments. Some of the most powerful civilizations leave no kings, no empires, and no flags. Yet they shape the world in ways far deeper than conquest ever could. And now, with modern technology and interdisciplinary research, historians are slowly reconstructing the story of this civilization. Archaeology, linguistics, DNA studies, and cultural analysis all reveal a network of knowledge and influence that spanned continents. We are beginning to see a picture of a civilization that was powerful, not through domination, but through connection, innovation, and shared human ambition. In the next chapter, we will explore the lasting legacy of this civilization, how its ideas, culture, and networks still influence our modern world, and why understanding it can change the way we see human history. Chapter 8. The lasting legacy. Even though this global civilization faded from mainstream history, its influence is all around us, often in ways we barely notice. The networks of trade, knowledge, and culture they built laid the foundation for the interconnected world we live in today. Many modern systems, from commerce to education, trace their roots back to the principles and practices of this civilization. Markets, trade networks, and cities were modeled on centuries of accumulated knowledge, creating systems that could efficiently exchange goods and ideas across great distances. Their innovations in agriculture still impact us today. Crop rotation, irrigation techniques, and animal domestication allowed societies to grow and prosper, influencing the development of civilizations across continents. Even in science and mathematics, the foundations they laid shaped astronomical observations, measurement systems, and engineering principles, which later civilizations built upon to create modern technology. Cultural legacies remain as well. Artistic motifs, architectural styles, and musical traditions often echo the shared designs and ideas that traveled along ancient trade networks. Religious practices, rituals, and philosophical concepts also show striking similarities across regions, demonstrating that ideas from this civilization continue to influence human thought and spirituality. Even social organization reflects their influence. The value of cooperation, trust, and shared knowledge has inspired governance systems, community structures, and international collaboration throughout history. Modern globalization mirrors the ancient networks of trade and knowledge. People, ideas, and technology travel faster than ever before. Yet the underlying principles, connection, collaboration, and curiosity remain the same. Educational systems reflect this legacy too. The idea that knowledge should be shared, preserved, and passed on. is a cornerstone of our schools, universities, and libraries, echoing the communal philosophy that sustained this civilization for centuries. Technology and innovation also owe a debt to their pioneering methods. Collaboration, experimentation, and adaptation were key principles, and they laid the groundwork for human ingenuity that continues to drive progress today, even in language and communication. Many words, grammatical structures, and symbolic systems traveled along these ancient networks, forming a subtle but lasting influence on modern languages around the world. The most profound legacy may be the idea of connection itself. This civilization proved that influence does not require armies or rulers, that progress can emerge through cooperation, shared vision, and the free exchange of ideas. Their story also challenges how we define power and success. It shows that civilizations can leave a greater mark through knowledge and culture than through conquest, domination, or wealth accumulation. Modern historians are only beginning to appreciate the full scope of their impact. Through archaeology, linguistics, DNA studies, and cultural research, we are uncovering the incredible networks that shaped human history long before modern empires arose. Their influence is a reminder that ordinary people, farmers, merchants, artisans, scholars can shape the world profoundly. Power does not always come from kings or armies. Sometimes it comes from ideas, cooperation, and a shared pursuit of knowledge. Even today, the principles of this civilization inspire innovation. Entrepreneurs, scientists, and educators continue to build upon networks of collaboration and knowledge sharing. The same principles that allowed this ancient civilization to flourish without rulers or empires. Ultimately, the lasting legacy of this civilization is both visible and invisible. Visible in the cities we live in, the tools we use, and the cultural practices we celebrate. Invisible in the ideas, philosophies, and principles that continue to guide human progress. It is a reminder that history is not only written by those with power, but also by the countless individuals whose curiosity, creativity, and cooperation shape the world quietly yet profoundly. In the next chapter, we will explore the mysteries that still surround this civilization. The unanswered questions, hidden locations, and secrets that continue to puzzle historians and archaeologists today, and why its story remains one of the most fascinating yet overlooked chapters in human history. Chapter 9. The Remaining Mysteries Despite Centuries of Research. This civilization continues to hold secrets that baffle historians, archaeologists, and anthropologists alike. Many of its cities, trade hubs, and communities remain undiscovered, buried beneath deserts, jungles, mountains, or even under modern cities. They guard clues about the daily lives, technologies, and beliefs of the people who built this vast global network. Archaeologists have uncovered fascinating artifacts, but these only scratch the surface. Pottery, tools, ornaments, and fragments of ancient manuscripts hint at an incredibly sophisticated society. Yet we are still far from understanding the full scale of their achievements. Some ancient texts and scripts remain completely undeciphered. Symbols etched into clay tablets, carved in stone, or inscribed on fragile materials contain knowledge that could radically change our understanding of human history. We have yet to unlock the secrets of their language systems, which may hold clues about governance, trade, or philosophy. Even the roots of their trade and cultural networks are not fully mapped. We know that goods, ideas, and knowledge traveled vast distances. Yet the complete picture of how they connected continents is still emerging. How did ordinary travelers maintain communication and trust across thousands of miles? How were ideas standardized without a central authority? These questions remain unanswered. The origins of this civilization are also shrouded in mystery. Where exactly did it begin? Was it a single origin point that spread globally, or multiple communities independently developing similar innovations and then interconnecting? Genetic studies hint at widespread migrations, but the exact pathways are still unclear. Some artifacts defy explanation. Complex metallurgy, precise architectural planning, and intricate artistic motifs appear in locations far apart, raising questions about the methods, knowledge, and communication systems these people possessed. How did they achieve such uniformity and precision without modern tools or written instructions? Religious and philosophical similarities across regions are equally puzzling. Certain myths, rituals, and moral teachings appear in distant communities, even where direct contact seems improbable. Did these ideas travel intentionally across networks? Or did human societies independently develop similar beliefs due to shared challenges and experiences? There are hidden sites that may still be buried, waiting to be uncovered. Remote islands, mountain valleys, deep forests, and desert ruins could contain vast libraries, cities, or even technological artifacts unknown to us. Each new discovery has the potential to rewrite our understanding of global history. Natural disasters may have erased crucial evidence. Earthquakes, floods, and volcanic eruptions destroyed cities, archives, and trade centers. These losses leave enormous gaps in the historical record, making it challenging to reconstruct the civilization's full story. Even the scale of their knowledge networks is astounding, from agriculture to astronomy, from medicine to mathematics. They connected distant societies in ways that continue to challenge our understanding of ancient civilizations. How did knowledge travel so efficiently across deserts, mountains, and seas, without formal institutions, empires, or centralized control? Historians debate the full extent of their influence. Did this civilization indirectly shape empires such as Rome, India, or China? Or was it a parallel network of innovation, quietly seeding ideas across the world without direct recognition? Some mysteries may never be solved, yet every discovery brings us closer to understanding their achievements, and to appreciating a civilization that flourished without kings, armies, or empires. Modern technology is accelerating our discoveries. Satellite imagery reveals previously hidden settlements. DNA studies trace migration patterns and population interconnections. AI-assisted analysis helps decipher undeciphered scripts and identify shared cultural motifs. Despite all this progress, the people themselves remain a profound mystery. Who were the ordinary individuals, farmers, merchants, artisans, and scholars who built a civilization without rulers? Their lives, struggles, and daily experiences are mostly lost to time. We see only traces of their ingenuity in the artifacts, trade networks, and shared knowledge they left behind. Even the civilization's influence on later societies remains partly invisible. Many innovations and cultural practices were adopted and adapted by subsequent civilizations. Yet the original creators often remain uncredited in mainstream history. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and agriculture all carry the fingerprints of this ancient network. Some of the most mysterious artifacts suggest advanced knowledge that surpasses what we previously thought possible. Precision engineering, astronomical alignment, and even early mechanical devices appear in places where historians did not expect them. Could they have had a system of knowledge transfer more sophisticated than we realize? The civilization's networks also challenge modern assumptions about communication. How did communities maintain trust, coordination, and shared values without formal governments or armies? How did knowledge travel so efficiently across thousands of miles? These questions remain open for researchers today. Even now, we are finding clues in unexpected places. Underwater ruins, forgotten caves, and hidden temples are being uncovered, offering tantalizing glimpses into the daily life, trade, and culture of this mysterious civilization. And perhaps the most profound mystery is this: how a civilization so advanced, so interconnected, and so influential could almost vanish from history. It challenges our assumptions about power, legacy, and how history is recorded. This civilization reminds us that history is not only written by rulers, kings, or empires, but also by the ideas, creativity, and cooperation of countless ordinary people. In the final chapter, we will explore the lessons we can learn from this civilization today. How understanding their networks, philosophy, and innovations could change the way we approach collaboration, knowledge, and human progress in the modern world. Chapter 10. Lessons for today. The story of this global civilization is not just history. It is a blueprint for understanding how humans can thrive through connection, knowledge, and cooperation. One of the most important lessons is that true influence does not always come from power or conquest. This civilization thrived not because of armies, kings, or empires, but because ordinary people shared ideas, innovations, and cultural practices across continents. In today's interconnected world, this principle is more relevant than ever. Knowledge, collaboration, and trust remain the most powerful tools for human progress, whether it is science, technology, education, or art. The more we share, the further we advance. Another key lesson is the importance of networks. This civilization shows that even without central control, strong networks of communication, trade, and cultural exchange can create resilience and prosperity. Communities that collaborate and share knowledge can overcome challenges that isolated societies cannot. The philosophy of connection also teaches us about ethics and cooperation. Trust, fairness, and reciprocity were essential to the civilization's success. These values allowed people to work together across thousands of miles. Long before formal laws or governments enforced them, we can apply this lesson today in business, education, politics, and personal relationships. Fostering trust and collaboration can produce better results than competition or domination alone. Innovation was another cornerstone of this civilization. They encouraged curiosity, experimentation, and the sharing of discoveries. Modern societies can learn from this by promoting open innovation and cross-cultural collaboration. Progress accelerates when ideas flow freely rather than being hoarded or restricted. The civilization's cultural footprint also reminds us of the power of soft influence. Art, music, rituals, and language shape societies far more effectively than armies ever could. Today, culture continues to connect people across borders, promoting understanding, empathy, and shared values in ways that formal power structures cannot. Resilience is another lesson we can take from this ancient network. The civilization endured environmental challenges, migrations, and social change. Not through coercion, but through cooperation, knowledge sharing, and adaptability. Modern societies face challenges like climate change, pandemics, and global conflicts, and can benefit from adopting similar approaches, flexible, interconnected, and collaborative. Even the lessons of being nearly forgotten are valuable. History often overlooks societies that do not fit traditional narratives of kings and empires, but their impact can be profound and enduring. We must remember to look beyond the obvious markers of power and recognize the contributions of those who shape the world quietly but significantly. Technology today mirrors some of the principles this civilization exemplified. From the internet to global supply chains, knowledge, culture, and ideas spread faster than ever before. By embracing connection, cooperation, and ethical sharing, we can maximize these networks' positive impact. Education is another area where we can apply their legacy. Sharing knowledge openly, encouraging curiosity, and fostering collaboration can produce more innovative and resilient societies. Just as this ancient civilization spread ideas without borders, modern learning should be accessible to all. Even in personal development, there are lessons. Collaboration, empathy, and shared understanding create stronger communities and allow individuals to contribute meaningfully to collective progress. Perhaps the most important lesson is that human progress is measured not only by monuments or victories, but by ideas, relationships, and networks that endure across time and space. The greatest legacy of this civilization is invisible, yet omnipresent. It lives in the systems, knowledge, and cultural practices that continue to influence our world today. By studying this civilization, We gain insight into how cooperation, ethics, and shared knowledge can build a better, more connected world. We are reminded that the foundations of human progress do not always come from rulers or armies, but from ordinary people acting collectively, sharing ideas, and embracing curiosity. So as we reflect on their story, we can ask ourselves, how can we apply these principles today? How can we build networks of trust, collaboration, and knowledge to solve modern problems, innovate, and create a more resilient, interconnected society? The story of this civilization is more than history. It is a guide for the present and a challenge for the future. If we can embrace its lessons, we can continue the work they started, building a world where knowledge, culture, and connection shape human progress, not conquest, wealth, or power. And with that, we close the story of this global civilization, a civilization that remains largely unknown, yet whose influence echoes through time, shaping the modern world in ways we are only beginning to understand. If you found this journey into the hidden history of humanity fascinating, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the mysteries of human history. Leave a comment below sharing which aspect of this civilization surprised you the most. And don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, so we can continue uncovering these hidden chapters of our past.